The knock came at 11:37 p.m. on a Tuesday night, violent enough to wake the dead. Ethan Brooks froze halfway through, tucking his daughter's blanket around her shoulders, his heart hammering against his ribs. No one knocked like that unless something was catastrophically wrong. He stumbled to the door, exhaustion making his movements clumsy, and yanked it open to find the last person he expected, Victoria Hale, his CEO, standing in his apartment hallway in clear throat, a designer coat and fury carved into every line of her face. She didn't ask to come in. She didn't apologize for the hour. She just looked him dead in the eye and said two words that detonated his entire world. "You're fired." Before we dive into how a midnight firing turned into the strangest salvation of my life, I need you to do something for me. This story goes places you won't expect. And I want to know how far it travels. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. And if this hook grabbed you, hit that like button. Now, let me tell you about the night my life fell apart so it could finally come together. Ethan Brooks had forgotten what it felt like to breathe without purpose. Every inhale was calculated, timed between emails, meetings, the mechanical motions of survival. Every exhale carried the weight of things left undone. Standing in his doorway at nearly midnight, staring at Victoria Hale's Arctic expression, he realized he'd also forgotten how to process shock. "I'm sorry, what?" His voice came out, barely functional. Behind him, he heard the soft creak of floorboards. Lily was still awake. "You're fired, Mr. Brooks." Victoria's tone was surgical, precise. She stood perfectly still in the hallway, her charcoal coat buttoned against the October chill that crept through the building's ancient heating system, effective immediately. "I need to speak with you. May I come in?" The question was rhetorical. She was already moving past him, her heels clicking against the worn hardwood of his apartment floor with the same authority she commanded in the boardroom 40 stories above the city. Ethan's mind spun uselessly, grasping at explanations that wouldn't come. Fired. He'd worked 80-hour weeks for the past 6 months. He'd sacrificed sleep, health, every moment that wasn't absolutely essential to keeping Lily fed and clothed. His performance reviews had been flawless. "Daddy." Lily appeared in the hallway, her small hand rubbing at her eyes. She was 7 years old, all wild brown curls and her mother's gentle features. The sight of her in her faded unicorn pajamas, 2 sizes too small now, because Ethan kept forgetting to buy new ones, sent a knife of guilt through his chest. "Who's here?" Just someone from work, sweetheart." Ethan moved to intercept her, placing himself between his daughter and the woman who'd apparently come to destroy what was left of his stability. "Go back to bed. I'll be there in a minute." But Victoria had already turned, her expression shifting into something Ethan couldn't quite read. She crouched down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level with a grace that seemed at odds with the Ice Queen reputation she'd cultivated over 15 years of ruthless corporate leadership. "Hello." Victoria's voice lost its edge, softening into something almost warm. "I'm Victoria. I work with your dad. I'm sorry we woke you up." Lily stuttered her with the unnerving directness only children possessed. "You're really pretty. Are you a princess?" Something flickered across Victoria's face. Surprise maybe, or pain, before the professional mask slid back into place. "Not quite, but thank you." She glanced up at Ethan. "She should be asleep. It's a school night." The criticism landed like a slap. Ethan felt heat crawl up his neck. "Lily, please. Bed now. His daughter's lower lip trembled, confusion clouding her features, but she obeyed. Ethan waited until he heard her bedroom door close before turning on Victoria, exhaustion giving way to an anger he didn't know he still had the energy to feel. "What the hell is this?" His voice stayed low, conscious of thin walls and curious neighbors. "You fire me and then critique my parenting. You show up at my home in the middle of the night." "It's 11:42. Victoria corrected. "Hardly the middle of the night. For single parents, it is." The words came out sharper than he intended. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, realizing with distant embarrassment that he probably looked like hell. He was wearing sweatpants with a coffee stain on the knee and a t-shirt he'd owned since college. He hadn't shaved in 3 days. "I don't understand what's happening. If this is about the Mercer account, I submitted those projections yesterday. If it's about the presentation, this isn't about your work product." Victoria moved further into the apartment. And Ethan saw her taking in the details he'd stopped noticing months ago. The stack of unopened mail on the kitchen counter. The dishes in the sink, fossilized with dried food, the laundry basket overflowing onto the floor. Lily's homework scattered across the coffee table alongside empty energy drink cans in his laptop, still open, still glowing with unfinished emails, though we should discuss that, too. She turned to face him fully, and in the dim light of his living room, Ethan noticed things he'd never registered in the office. The fine lines around her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights similar to his own. The way her perfectly tailored suit couldn't quite hide the tension in her shoulders. The fact that at nearly midnight on a Tuesday, she looked exactly as composed as she did at 8 a.m. Monday morning meetings. "When was the last time you slept, Mr. Brooks?" The question caught him off guard. "I what?" "Slept more than 4 hours." "When?" Ethan's mind went blank. He honestly couldn't remember. "I don't see how that's relevant to, you fell asleep in the quarterly review meeting last Thursday." Victoria's words were clinical, but her eyes held something else. Concern. Anger. He couldn't tell. "You nodded off twice during the presentation. Marcus had to nudge you awake." Shame burned through him. "I'd been up all night with Lily. She had a fever. I couldn't." "You didn't tell anyone. You didn't ask to reschedule. You didn't delegate the Parsons contract despite the fact that 3 junior associates volunteered to handle it." Victoria's voice rose slightly, the first crack in her controlled facade. "You missed 2 client dinners last month. You were 40 minutes late to the strategy session on Monday. Your reports, while technically accurate, have been submitted at 3 and 4 a.m. Last week, you sent me an email at 5:30 in the morning that was clearly written in a state of severe sleep deprivation. It was barely coherent. Each accusation hit like a hammer. Ethan wanted to defend himself, to explain that he was doing his best, that he had no choice, that every single thing she'd listed had a reason behind it. But the words wouldn't come. He was too tired, too empty. "I'm trying," he said finally, and hated how defeated he sounded. "I'm trying as hard as I can." "I know." The snap had left Victoria's voice, replaced by something quieter, something that sounded almost like understanding. "That's the problem." She moved to his couch, carefully stepping over a stuffed elephant that had seen better days, and sat down with careful precision. After a moment's hesitation, she gestured to the chair across from her. Ethan sank into it, too tired to remain standing. "Tell me about your wife," Victoria said. The shift in topic disoriented him. Sarah, what does she have to do with everything? Victoria's gaze didn't waver. She died 14 months ago. Car accident. You took 3 days of bereavement leave, then came back to work full-time. You've been with the company for 6 years, and your personnel file shows you've never taken a sick day. Not one. Since Sarah's death, you've accumulated 732 hours of unused vacation time. Ethan's throat tightened. I can't afford to take time off. I have a daughter to support, medical bills, the mortgage. You're salaried. Taking vacation wouldn't affect your income. But it would affect my position, my visibility. If I'm not there, someone else is. Someone who doesn't have to leave at 5:30 to pick up their kid from after-school care. Someone who can stay late for client drinks, or come in early for breakfast meetings. The words tumbled out. All the fears he'd been swallowing for months, finally finding voice. I can't compete if I'm not present. I can't afford to be seen as weak or unreliable or human. Victoria's eyebrow arched. You can't afford to be human. Not when I'm all Lily has left. Ethan's voice cracked. He pressed his palms against his eyes, fighting back the exhaustion and emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. You don't understand. Every day is a calculation. Can I sleep 3 hours and still function? Can I skip lunch to finish this report? Can I let Lily have cereal for dinner again, because I don't have the energy to cook? Every single thing is a choice between failing her or failing at work. And I can't fail at either because failing at work means we lose the apartment, and the insurance and everything she needs to be okay. Silence stretched between them. When Ethan finally lowered his hands, he found Victoria studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. You think you're protecting her, she said quietly, by destroying yourself. I'm doing what I have to do. No. Victoria leaned forward, her elbows on her knees. You're drowning. And you've been drowning for so long that you've forgotten what breathing feels like. You've normalized a state of constant crisis. You're in pure survival mode. And you think that's what strength looks like. Ethan wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come because she was right. He knew she was right. He just didn't know what else to do. I was married once, Victoria said, and the admission shocked him into attention. In 6 years at the company, he'd never heard her mention anything personal. She was a figure of pure professional competence, the kind of executive who seemed to exist only in boardrooms and strategy sessions. His name was David. We met in business school, married young, built careers together. She paused, her gaze distant. He died 8 years ago. Heart attack. 41 years old. I found him in our bathroom at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm so sorry, Ethan managed. The words felt inadequate. Victoria acknowledged them with a slight nod. I took 4 days off. Then I came back to work. I had a company to run, investors to answer to, employees depending on me. I worked 16-hour days, slept at the office, told myself that staying busy was healthy, that throwing myself into work was better than falling apart. Her jaw tightened. Within a year, I'd gained 40 pounds, developed an ulcer, and had 2 close friends tell me they couldn't watch me self-destruct anymore. I ignored them both. I knew better, you see. I was handling it. I was functional. Ethan recognized his own rationalizations in her words, and the recognition made his chest ache. I collapsed at my desk on a Wednesday afternoon, Victoria continued. Stress-induced arrhythmia. Spent 3 days in the hospital while doctors explained that I was actively killing myself, that my body was shutting down from sustained abuse, that if I didn't change, I'd be dead before 50. She met his eyes. And you know what the worst part was? I went back to work the day after I was discharged because I didn't know who I was if I wasn't working. I didn't know how to exist in the empty space where grief lived. The apartment felt too small, suddenly too quiet, except for the ambient sounds of the building settling in distant traffic. It took me 2 more years to figure out that working myself to death wasn't honor, or dedication, or strength. It was fear. Fear of feeling. Fear of stopping long enough to realize how much I'd lost. Victoria's voice remained steady, but Ethan heard the pain beneath it. And when I finally did stop, when I finally let myself grieve properly, I realized I'd wasted 2 years of my life running from the only thing that could actually heal me. Time, rest, permission to be broken for a while. Ethan's vision blurred. He blinked hard. I don't have that luxury. Lily needs a father who's present, not a ghost who exists on 4 hours of sleep and functions on pure adrenaline. Victoria's voice sharpened again. She needs a parent who can actually engage with her, not someone so exhausted that he forgets to buy her clothes that fit. She needs you to be okay, Ethan, and you're not okay. The use of his first name startled him. In 6 years, Victoria had never called him anything but Mr. Brooks. You said I was fired. Ethan's voice came out small. From your current role? Yes. Victoria pulled a folder from her bag. He hadn't even noticed she'd brought one, and set it on the coffee table between them. Effective immediately, you're being removed from all client-facing responsibilities. Your workload is being reduced by 60%. The projects you are currently managing will be redistributed to your team, with full credit to you for groundwork already completed. Ethan's stomach dropped. You're demoting me. I'm restructuring your position to match what a human being can sustainably handle. Victoria opened the folder, revealing documents he was too panicked to read. You'll maintain your current salary. Your title will remain Senior Strategic Analyst, but your responsibilities will shift to long-term research and internal consulting projects with flexible deadlines, work that can be done remotely when necessary, a schedule that allows you to actually parent your daughter. I don't understand. Ethan's hands shook. Why would you keep me at the same salary if I'm doing less work? Because your value to this company isn't measured by how many hours you can survive on minimal sleep. Victoria's expression softened slightly. You're brilliant, Ethan. Your strategic analyses have shaped 3 of our most successful campaigns. The Mercer projection model you developed saved us from a catastrophic investment. You have institutional knowledge and creative problem-solving skills that are irreplaceable. What you don't have is the capacity to continue at an unsustainable pace without eventually collapsing. She pushed the folder toward him. This isn't charity. It's pragmatic business. I can either restructure your role now while you're still functional, or I can wait 6 months until you have a breakdown and I lose you entirely. I've seen this pattern before. I've lived it. And I'm not going to watch another talented person destroy themselves because they think survival mode is a sustainable life strategy. Ethan stared at the folder like it might bite him. What if I say no? Then you're actually fired. Victoria's voice went cold. Because I will not enable your self-destruction. I will not be complicit in the slow-motion suicide you're committing. If you can't accept help, then you can't work here. Those are your options. The ultimatum hung in the air between them. Ethan's mind raced through calculations trying to find the angle, the catch, the hidden cost. This didn't happen in the corporate world. Executives didn't show up at midnight to force work-life balance on struggling employees. There had to be something he was missing. Why do you care? The question came out before he could stop it. You've barely spoken to me outside of meetings in 6 years. Why does this matter to you? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight that suggested old wounds. Because no one did this for me. Because David died and I threw myself into work. And everyone around me either didn't notice or didn't care enough to intervene. Because I wasted years of my life proving I could function on empty, and I will never get those years back. She stood, gathering her bag, and because that little girl in the next room deserves better than a father who's too exhausted to live. She moved toward the door, then paused. You have until Monday to review the terms and sign the restructuring agreement. Take the weekend, sleep, spend time with your daughter, think about whether you want to keep surviving or whether you're ready to start living again. Ethan followed her to the door on autopilot. His thoughts were a chaotic mess, bouncing between relief and terror and confusion. I don't know how to do this differently. Victoria looked back at him and for the first time since she'd arrived, he saw something almost gentle in her expression. Neither did I. But you figure it out. One day at a time, one choice at a time. She paused. The first choice is sleep, Ethan. Real sleep. Not collapsing for 4 hours before your alarm goes off. Let yourself rest. Then she was gone. Her footsteps echoing down the hallway toward the elevator. Ethan stood in his doorway, watching her disappear. The folder clutched in his hands like a life preserver he didn't know whether to grab or throw away. Daddy. He turned to find Lily standing in the hallway again, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. She looked scared. Are we in trouble? Ethan crossed the space between them and scooped her up, holding her close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. No, baby, we are not in trouble. Did you lose your job? He carried her back to her bedroom, settling her into bed and pulling the blankets up around her shoulders. My job is changing a little bit, but it's going to be okay. Better than okay, maybe. Is the pretty lady mad at you? Ethan thought about Victoria's expression, the careful control, the pain beneath it. No, I think she's trying to help us. Lily's eyes were already drooping. That's good. She seemed nice for a grown-up. Despite everything, Ethan smiled. Yeah, maybe she is. He stayed until Lily's breathing evened out into sleep, then made his way back to the living room. The folder sat on the coffee table where Victoria had left it. He picked it up, carried it to the couch, and began to read. The terms were exactly as she'd described. Reduced hours, flexible scheduling, remote work options, maintained salary and title, support staff assigned to help manage his existing projects during the transition. There was even a clause about emergency parental leave, discretionary days he could use without penalty for sick children or school events. It was everything he'd needed for the past 14 months and hadn't known how to ask for. Ethan set the folder down and looked around his apartment with fresh eyes. Really looked at it for the first time in months. The mess, the neglect, the evidence of a life that had become pure function without any joy. When had he last read Lily a bedtime story instead of just tucking her in and returning to his laptop? When had he last cooked a real meal? When had he last done anything that wasn't purely utilitarian? Victoria was right. He'd forgotten how to breathe without purpose. He'd forgotten how to live instead of just survive. His phone sat on the arm of the couch, the screen dark. On impulse, he picked it up and opened his email. 243 unread messages. His fingers hovered over the icon, muscle memory ready to engage, to start triaging, to slip back into the comfortable rhythm of constant productivity. Instead, he set the phone down and stood up. He walked to the kitchen and began washing the dishes in the sink. Not because it was efficient or necessary, but because the warm water felt good on his hands. Because the simple mechanical action of cleaning felt like reclaiming something. The dishes took 20 minutes. He didn't rush. He didn't think about anything else. He just washed dishes. When the sink was empty and the counter cleared, he moved to the laundry basket, folded clothes, put them away, organized Lily's homework into neat piles, threw away the energy drink cans, closed his laptop without opening it. By the time he finished, it was past 1 o'clock in the morning, and the apartment looked like a place where people actually lived instead of just survived. Ethan stood in the middle of his living room and felt something he hadn't felt in months. A sense of accomplishment that had nothing to do with work metrics or performance reviews. He should have been exhausted. He'd been awake for almost 20 hours. But instead of immediately heading to bed, he found himself pulling out his phone again, not for email, for the photos app he hadn't opened in weeks. Sarah's face smiled up at him from the screen, frozen in a moment at the beach 2 summers ago. Lily was a toddler in the image, sandy and sunburned and laughing. Sarah's arm was around Ethan's waist, her head on his shoulder. They looked happy. They looked like people who knew how to live. The grief hit him like it always did, sharp and sudden and overwhelming. But this time, instead of pushing it away, instead of diving into work to escape it, Ethan let himself feel it. He sat on the couch and looked at photos of his wife and let himself miss her. Let himself cry for the first time in months. Let himself be broken for a little while. When the tears finally stopped, it was nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. Ethan felt hollowed out, but somehow lighter. He set his phone aside, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Real bed, not passing out at his desk or on the couch with his laptop still open. For the first time in 14 months, he slept without setting an alarm. He woke to sunlight streaming through his window and the smell of something burning. Panic jolted him upright. The clock read 8:47. He'd slept almost 7 hours. Lily. He bolted to the kitchen and found his daughter standing on a chair at the stove attempting to make pancakes badly. There was batter everywhere, the counter, the floor, her pajamas. The pan was smoking slightly. Lily, get down from there. Ethan rushed forward, turning off the burner and lifting her away from the stove. You know you're not supposed to cook by yourself. His daughter's lower lip trembled. You were sleeping. I didn't want to wake you up. I thought I could make breakfast like Mommy used to. The fight went out of him immediately. Ethan set her down gently and crouched to her level. That was very sweet, baby, but also very dangerous. What if you'd burned yourself? I was careful. Lily's voice was small. Are you mad? Ethan looked at the disaster zone of his kitchen, at his daughter's pancake-battered pajamas, at the genuine effort to do something kind. He thought about Victoria's words about being present instead of just functional. "No," he said finally. "I'm not mad, but let's make a deal. From now on, we cook together, okay?" Lily's face brightened. "Really? Really? In fact, let's start right now. Let me show you how Mommy taught me to make pancakes." They spent the next hour in the kitchen making a mess and laughing and burning only 2 pancakes instead of all of them. Lily chatted about school and her friends and a book she was reading. And Ethan realized he didn't know most of these details. Somewhere in the past months, he'd stopped asking about her day beyond cursory questions. He'd been physically present but mentally absent, always half-focused on work, even during the precious hours he had with her. They ate their imperfect pancakes at the table, not in front of the TV, not with Ethan's laptop open beside them, just together. Lily told him about a boy in her class who'd pulled her hair, and how she'd told the teacher. And Ethan actually listened instead of nodding on autopilot while thinking about his next meeting. "Daddy," Lily asked, syrup on her chin. "Are you okay? You seem different." "Different how?" She scrunched up her nose, thinking like you're actually here. The observation hit harder than it should have. "Yeah, baby. I think I am finally." After breakfast, they cleaned up together. Then, instead of telling Lily to play quietly while he worked, Ethan suggested they go to the park. Her shocked delight made his chest ache with guilt. When did going to the park become a novelty instead of a normal part of their weekends? They spent 3 hours at the playground. Ethan pushed Lily on the swings until his arms ached. They played on the jungle gym, fed ducks at the pond, got ice cream from the vendor, even though it was only October, and too cold for frozen treats. Ethan's phone buzzed repeatedly in his pocket with work emails, notifications, messages. He ignored all of them. By the time they got home, it was late afternoon. Lily crashed on the couch, exhausted and happy. Ethan covered her with a blanket and finally allowed himself to check his phone. 63 work emails, 12 texts from colleagues, 3 voicemails. All of it felt distant and unimportant compared to the sound of his daughter's even breathing as she napped beside him. One email stood out from the others. It was from Victoria, sent at 2 a.m. Them clears throat, subject line read, additional resources. Ethan opened it. "Mr. Brooks. After our conversation, I realized I failed to provide adequate support resources. I've attached contact information for 3 excellent therapists who specialize in grief counseling and parental stress management. I've also included information about the company's employee assistance program, which covers 10 therapy sessions annually at no cost to you. Additionally, I've arranged for you to meet with Maria Chen from HR on Monday morning. She'll walk you through all available parental support benefits, including backup child care services and flexible work arrangements. Take the weekend, be with your daughter. We'll handle everything else on Monday." V. Hail below the signature was a personal note separate from the formal email. P.S. It gets easier. Not quickly, not linearly, but it does get easier. The fact that you're still trying, still fighting to be there for your daughter means you're stronger than you think. Don't mistake exhaustion for weakness. Ethan read the email 3 times. Then he opened the attachments, information about therapists, benefit programs, support services he'd never known existed. Resources that might have made the past 14 months bearable if he'd known to ask for them. He saved all of it. Then he opened a new email and began to type, "Miss Hale, Thank you for last night, for the resources, for caring enough to intervene when you didn't have to. I don't know how to do this differently yet, but I'm willing to try. I'll sign the restructuring agreement on Monday. I owe you an apology for falling asleep in meetings, missing deadlines, and generally being a disaster for the past months. You would have been justified in actually firing me. The fact that you chose to help instead says more about your leadership than I think you realize. I'm taking the weekend. Really taking it. Lily and I are going to the museum tomorrow, then maybe the library. Normal things. Things I should have been doing all along. Thank you for reminding me what that looks like. Ethan Brooks. He sent it before he could second-guess it himself. Then he closed his laptop, set his phone on silent, and settled in to watch whatever cartoon Lily wanted when she woke up. The weekend passed in a blur of normally that felt revolutionary. Museum on Sunday, library after, grocery shopping where Ethan actually bought fresh vegetables instead of frozen dinners, and energy drinks, cooking dinner together, reading bedtime stories, having conversations that weren't rushed or distracted. By Monday morning, Ethan felt like a different person. Still tired, 7 hours a night wasn't going to immediately undo months of sleep deprivation, but present in a way he hadn't been since Sarah died. He dropped Lily at school, kissed her goodbye, and watched her run to join her friends. She turned back to wave at him, and he waved back, staying until she disappeared into the building instead of rushing off immediately. The office felt different when he arrived. Or maybe he felt different. He went straight to HR, where Maria Chen greeted him with a warmth that suggested Victoria had briefed her thoroughly. They spent 90 minutes going over benefits, support services, flexible arrangements. Ethan signed paperwork, asked questions, took notes. Victoria's office was on the top floor, separated from the general work areas by glass walls that managed to be both transparent and isolating. Ethan had only been in it a handful of times in 6 years. He knocked on the open door frame and she looked up from her computer. "Mr. Brooks, please come in." He entered suddenly nervous, the restructuring agreement folder in his hands. "I wanted to deliver this in person." Victoria took the folder, reviewed the signed documents, and nodded. "Good. Maria will coordinate with your team on project transitions. You'll work from home the rest of this week, while we redistribute responsibilities. I want you to use that time to establish routines that actually work for you and Lily. Not just survival routines, sustainable ones." "I will." Ethan hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why me? You have 200 employees. How many of them are struggling the same way I was? Why did you personally intervene?" Victoria was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Do you know what I see when I look at you, Ethan? I see someone who fought so hard to be both parent and professional that you forgot you're also just a person. Someone who thought strength meant never showing weakness, never asking for help, never admitting when you're drowning." She paused. "I see who I was 8 years ago, and I can't go back and save that version of myself. But I can do this for you, for others who need it." "Thank you," Ethan said quietly, "for seeing me when I couldn't see myself anymore." Victoria stood and extended her hand. He shook it, surprised by the firmness of her grip. "Don't waste this, Mr. Brooks. Don't fall back into old patterns because they are comfortable. Build something better for yourself and for your daughter." "I will." As Ethan left her office and headed home in the middle of a Monday morning, because he could now, he felt something unfamiliar settling in his chest. Not quite hope, not yet, but possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, the knock on his door at midnight hadn't been the end of his world. Maybe it had been the beginning of finding his way back into it. The first week of the new arrangement felt like learning to walk again, after years of running. Ethan worked from his apartment, his laptop set up at the kitchen table instead of balanced on his knees at 3 o'clock in the morning. The silence was disorienting. No office chatter, no meetings to rush to, just him, his research projects, and the strange luxury of being able to stop for lunch. On Wednesday afternoon, his phone rang. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. "Mr. Brooks, how are you adjusting?" Ethan glanced around his clean kitchen, at the meal prep containers he'd organized on Sunday, at the schedule he'd posted on the refrigerator color-coded blocks for work for Lily for himself. "It's strange. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. There is no other shoe. This is the new normal. Are you managing the workload?" "Honestly, I finished today's tasks in 4 hours. I don't know what to do with the rest of my time." Victoria's laugh was dry. "Most people would celebrate that. You sound disturbed by it." "I feel lazy, unproductive. You feel human. There's a difference." Papers rustled on her end. "I'm sending you a new project, long-term market analysis for the European expansion. It's complex, requires deep research, and the deadline is 3 months out. I want thorough work, not fast work, quality over speed. Can you handle that?" Ethan felt something shift in his chest. Trust. She was trusting him with something important despite restructuring his role. "Yes, absolutely." "Good. I'll have the briefing materials sent over by end of day." She paused. "Ethan, I need you to understand something. This isn't charity. I'm not keeping you around out of pity. You're valuable precisely because you think deeply about problems, but that kind of thinking requires space and rest. The old pace wasn't making you more productive. It was making you sloppy." The words stung, but they were true. "I know. I'm working on it." "I know you are. Keep me updated on your progress. And Ethan, pick up your daughter from school yourself today. Be there when she comes out. Watch her face light up when she sees you." The line went dead before he could respond. Ethan stared at his phone, then checked the time. 2:30, school let out at 3:15. He'd been planning to work until 5, then rush to the after-hour program that stayed open until 6 o'clock. The idea of actually being there, waiting at the gate like the other parents, felt foreign and essential at the same time. He saved his work, closed his laptop, and grabbed his jacket. The elementary school parking lot was already filling with cars when he arrived. Parents clustered in small groups, chatting while they waited. Ethan recognized a few faces from previous pickups, the rare occasions when he'd managed to leave work early enough. A woman with red hair waved at him. "Ethan, right? Lily's dad." He nodded, trying to place her. "Yes. Sorry, I'm terrible with names. Jennifer, my daughter Emma is in Lily's class. We've met at a few school events." She smiled warmly. "I haven't seen you at pickup in a while. Work has been intense." The excuse felt automatic. "But I'm trying to be here more often now." "That's great. The kids really notice when we show up. Emma talks about Lily all the time. They are good friends." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He didn't know who Lily's friends were beyond names mentioned in passing. They should have a play date sometime. Jennifer's face brightened. I'd love that. Are you free this Saturday? We are going to the Children's Museum. You and Lily should join us. The old Ethan would have made excuses. Would have checked his calendar and found reasons why Saturday wouldn't work. The new Ethan, the one trying to figure out how to actually live, heard himself say, "That sounds perfect." What time? They exchanged numbers just as the school doors opened and children poured out. Lily emerged in a cluster of girls, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Her eyes scanned the crowd, landing on Ethan with visible shock. "Daddy!" She ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "You're here. You're actually here." The joy in her voice broke something in him. "I'm here, baby." "How was school?" "It was good. We learned about fractions, and I got a 100 on my spelling test, and Emma said I could come to her birthday party next month." The words tumbled out in an excited rush. "Can I go, please?" "Of course you can go." Ethan smoothed her wild curls, struck by how tall she was getting. "When had that happened?" "In fact, we're going to the museum with Emma and her mom on Saturday." Lily's squeal of delight drew smiles from nearby parents. She grabbed his hand, chattering about her day as they walked to the car. Ethan listened, really listened, asking questions and laughing at her stories. The drive home took 15 minutes. He didn't check his phone once. That evening, they cooked dinner together. Lily helped measure ingredients for stir-fry, her tongue poking out in concentration as she counted tablespoons of soy sauce. They ate at the table, talking about fractions and spelling and whether unicorns could be real if nobody had found them yet. After dinner, Ethan helped with homework instead of sitting nearby with his laptop open. He read her essay about what she wanted to be when she grew up, a veterinarian who only treated magical creatures, and told her it was brilliant. They played a board game that lasted an hour. He gave her a bath, read 3 chapters of her current favorite book, and tucked her in with actual time and attention instead of distracted exhaustion. "Daddy." Lily's voice was drowsy. "I like when you're home." "Me too, sweetheart." "Are you going to keep being home, or is it going to go back to before?" The question hit him hard. Before. When he'd been a ghost in his own life. "I'm going to keep being home. I promise." She smiled and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Ethan stayed, watching her breathe, marveling at how much he'd missed by being too tired to pay attention. The gap in her front teeth from the one she'd lost 3 weeks ago, he'd barely noticed. The new freckles across her nose. The way she still slept with the stuffed elephant Sarah had given her when she was born. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Did you pick her up?" Ethan smiled and typed back, "Yes." Her face did light up. "Thank you." The response came immediately. "Good. That's what you're working for. Remember that." The next few weeks developed a rhythm. Ethan worked from home 4 days a week, went into the office on Fridays for meetings and face-to-face collaboration. His projects were challenging but manageable. The European expansion analysis required deep research into market trends, regulatory environments, cultural factors. It was the kind of work he'd always loved, strategic, complex, requiring real thought instead of reactive task completion. He established routines. Morning coffee while Lily ate breakfast. Drop off at school, work until 2:30, pick up, homework and dinner, evening time together, bedtime stories. Then instead of diving back into work, he'd spend an hour on something for himself, reading, watching a show, sometimes just sitting quietly, learning to be comfortable with stillness. The exhaustion began to lift slowly, layers peeling away to reveal someone he'd almost forgotten existed. He had energy for conversations, patience for Lily's questions, capacity for joy instead of just function. On Friday morning, he went into the office for the weekly strategy meeting. His team greeted him warmly. Marcus, who'd covered his accounts during the transition, and two junior analysts who'd helped redistribute his workload. Brooks, good to see you, man. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. You look human again. I feel human again. Ethan settled into his usual chair. How's the Parsons contract coming? Solid. We closed it yesterday. The client was thrilled with your initial framework. I just executed your strategy. Marcus grinned. You made it easy. Before Ethan could respond, the conference room door opened and Victoria entered. The room shifted subtly, everyone straightening in their chairs. She commanded attention without demanding it. Presence honed over decades of leadership. Good morning. Let's make this efficient. I know everyone has actual work to do. Victoria pulled up the agenda on the screen. Marcus Parsons update first. The meeting progressed smoothly. Ethan contributed when relevant, his mind clear enough to make connections he'd have missed in his previous state of constant exhaustion. He noticed Victoria watching him at one point, a slight nod of approval when he presented a solution to a market penetration problem that had stumped the team. After the meeting, she pulled him aside. Walk with me. They moved through the office toward the executive floor, Victoria's heels clicking against the polished floor. Employees greeted her with respect edged with weariness. She had a reputation for brilliance and high standards that bordered on impossible. Your European analysis preliminary report was excellent, Victoria said without preamble. Thorough, insightful, exactly what I needed. More importantly, it was clear you'd actually thought about the problems instead of just compiling data. Thank you. It's good work. I'm enjoying it. I can tell. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. She stopped outside her office, turning to face him fully. You're wasted in pure analysis, Ethan. You think strategically. You see patterns others miss. You ask the right questions. Those are leadership skills, not just technical ones. Ethan felt uncertainty creep in. I thought we were reducing my responsibilities. We were. We did. Your workload is sustainable now, but that doesn't mean you can't grow into something different, something better suited to your actual strengths. Victoria gestured to her office. Come in. I want to show you something. Her office was exactly as he remembered, sleek, organized, dominated by a massive desk and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She pulled up a file on her computer and turned the screen toward him. Clears throat, I'm creating a new position, Director of Strategic Innovation. Someone who works across departments, identifies opportunities, develops long-term strategies. It requires deep thinking, not constant firefighting, flexible schedule, mostly remote, with occasional in-person collaborative sessions. She looked at him steadily. I want you to consider it. Not now. 6 months from now when you fully stabilized. But I'm telling you now so you have something to work toward. Ethan stared at the job description, his heart racing. It was everything he'd want in a role. Intellectual challenge without the crushing pressure. Influence without the constant availability demands. Victoria, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet. Just think about it. Build your life back. Take care of yourself and Lily. Get therapy. Learn to function as a whole person instead of a work machine. Then if you want it, it's yours. She closed the file. You have potential, Ethan. Real potential. But only if you stop trying to kill yourself, proving your worth. He left her office feeling lighter and more terrified than he'd felt in months. Possibilities stretched out in front of him, vast and uncertain. For the first time since Sarah's death, he could imagine a future that wasn't just survival. Saturday arrived bright and cold. Ethan and Lily met Jennifer and Emma at the Children's Museum at 10 o'clock. The girls raced ahead, giggling while the adults followed at a more sedate pace. So, how long have you been at your company? Jennifer asked as they wandered through an exhibit on simple machines. 6 years, you. I'm a nurse, labor and delivery at County General, 12-hour shifts, which is exhausting, but at least I have a clear schedule. I imagine corporate work is harder to compartmentalize. Ethan laughed without humor. That's an understatement. I'm learning though. Trying to set better boundaries. That's good. It's so important for the kids. Emma's dad died when she was 3. Heart defect nobody knew about. It's been just us for 4 years now. Jennifer's voice remained steady, but Ethan heard the pain beneath it. The first year I worked every shift I could get. Thought staying busy would help. It just made me miserable and made Emma clingy and anxious. How did you stop? Therapy. And Emma's teacher pulled me aside one day and told me my daughter needed me present. Not just physically there. It was a wake-up call. She smiled. We figured it out together. Some days are still hard, but we are okay now. You and Lily will be, too. They spent 3 hours at the museum. The girls played in the water exhibit, the science lab, the art studio. Ethan helped Emma build a bridge while Lily constructed an elaborate pulley system. Jennifer took photos, capturing moments of pure childhood joy. At lunch in the museum cafe, Lily and Emma chatted about everything and nothing. Their friendship easy and genuine. Ethan found himself relaxing in a way he couldn't remember experiencing in months. No pressure, no deadlines, just being present in a moment with his daughter and new friends. We should do this regularly, Jennifer said. Monthly museum trips or park days. Give the girls time together, and give us adult conversation that isn't work-related. I'd really like that ton. On the drive home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from hours of play. Ethan glanced at her in the rearview mirror, her face peaceful, and felt gratitude so intense it was almost painful. This was what he'd been missing. This was what Victoria had given back to him. His phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Victoria. How was the museum? Perfect. Thank you for pushing me to do this. I didn't push you to do anything. I just removed the obstacles you'd built yourself. You did the rest. The following week brought the first real test of his new boundaries. A crisis erupted with a major client. Technical failures, missed deadlines, potential contract cancellation, the kind of emergency that would have consumed Ethan completely in his previous life. Marcus called him at 4 p.m., panic in his voice. "Brooks, we need you. The Silverman account is imploding. Can you come in?" Ethan looked at his watch, then at Lily doing homework at the kitchen table. "What specifically do you need from me?" "Strategy, damage control. You built the relationship with them. They trust you. Can it wait until tomorrow? I can come in at 7 o'clock before I drop Lily at school." "Ethan, this is urgent. We are losing them." The old fear rose up. If he wasn't available, he wasn't valuable. If he maintained boundaries, he'd be seen as uncommitted. He opened his mouth to cave to say he'd figure something out, to sacrifice the evening with his daughter for work that would always demand more. Then he thought about Victoria's words, about the fact that she'd promoted the idea of him for director while knowing he maintained boundaries, about the promise he'd made to Lily, that things would be different. "I can't come in tonight, but I can join a video call at 8 after Lily's in bed, and I'll be in the office at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's what I can offer." Silence on the other end. "Okay, I'll set up the call." When Marcus hung up, Ethan felt sick. He just potentially damaged his career. Proven he wasn't a team player. Shown he couldn't handle pressure. His phone rang again. "Victoria, I heard about Silverman." Marcus is panicking. "Are you available for a call tonight?" "Yes, at 8. I told Marcus I'd join then." "Good. That's all we need from you. I'll handle the rest." She paused. "Ethan, you made the right call. This isn't your emergency to solve alone, and you're allowed to have boundaries. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." The relief was overwhelming. "Thank you. 7 a.m. tomorrow works for you?" "Yes." "Perfect. I'll see you then. Now go help your daughter with her homework." The video call at 8 lasted 90 minutes. Ethan joined from his couch, Lily asleep in her room, and walked the team through relationship repair strategies, contract restructuring options, and communication approaches. His mind was clear, his solution solid. By 9:30, they had a plan. Marcus messaged him privately after. "Thanks for this. Sorry for the pressure earlier. I forgot you're still allowed to have a life. We are all allowed to have lives. We just forget sometimes." At 7 the next morning, Ethan was in the conference room with Victoria and the senior team. They executed the Silverman recovery plan flawlessly. By noon, the client had agreed to a contract extension with modified terms that actually improved their position. Crisis averted. Victoria pulled him aside afterward. "You handled that perfectly. Clear thinking, solid strategy, appropriate boundaries. That's exactly the kind of leadership I'm looking for in the innovation director role. I almost caved last night. Almost dropped everything to rush in. But you didn't. That's growth." She smiled, a rare expression that transformed her entire face. "Keep growing, Ethan. You're getting there." Over the next month, Ethan settled fully into his new rhythm. He attended 2 therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Chen, one of the counselors Victoria had recommended. She was gentle and direct, helping him process grief he'd buried, guilt he'd carried, fear he'd internalized. "You're allowed to be happy again, Dr. Chen told him in their 3rd session. "Sarah wouldn't have wanted you to suffer forever. She'd want you to live." The permission felt revolutionary. He started allowing himself small joys. Morning coffee that he actually tasted instead of just consuming for caffeine. Music while he cooked. Laughter that came easily when Lily told terrible knock-knock jokes. He joined a grief support group for single parents. Sitting in a church basement on Thursday evenings, listening to other people's stories of loss and survival, he realized he wasn't alone. Other people understood the impossible balancing act, the guilt, the exhaustion, the slow climb back to functionality. A woman named Patricia, whose husband had died in a construction accident, approached him after one meeting. "You're doing better than when you first came. I can see it in your face. I feel better. Like I'm actually present in my life again. That's the goal. We don't move on from grief. We move forward with it. It gets less heavy over time." She squeezed his arm gently. "Keep going. You're doing great." In November, Jennifer invited Ethan and Lily to Thanksgiving dinner. "It'll be small, just us, my parents, and my brother's family. You shouldn't be alone on holidays." Ethan's first instinct was to decline, to maintain distance, to not impose. But Lily's hopeful expression stopped him. "We'd love to come. Can I bring anything?" "Just yourselves." Thanksgiving was warm and chaotic, filled with food and conversation and children running through the house. Lily played with Emma and Jennifer's nephews, her laughter ringing through the rooms. Ethan helped in the kitchen, falling into easy conversation with Jennifer's mother about gardening and her father about vintage cars. "You're good for Jennifer," her mother said quietly while they prepared pies. "She's been isolated since Emma's father died. Threw herself into work, pushed away friends." "Sound familiar?" Ethan smiled ruefully. "Very. It's good you're both finding your way back. And those girls adore each other. That's special." As he drove home that evening, Lily drowsy in the back seat, and leftover pie on the passenger seat, Ethan felt something that had been absent for over a year. Contentment. Not happiness exactly. Grief still lived in him, a constant presence, but contentment in the moment, in the life he was building, in the father he was becoming. December arrived with the first snow. Ethan took Lily to pick out a Christmas tree, letting her choose a slightly crooked one, because she insisted it needed love. They decorated it together, hanging ornaments Sarah had collected over the years. Some made him cry. He let himself cry, and Lily hugged him, and they talked about her mother in ways they hadn't been able to before. "I miss Mommy," Lily said, her small hand in his as they sat on the couch admiring their lopsided tree. "Me too, baby. Every day. But it's okay to still be happy sometimes, right? Even though we miss her." Ethan pulled her close, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Yes, it's absolutely okay. Mommy would want us to be happy. I think she'd like our tree. I think she'd love it." On the last Friday before the holiday break, Victoria called him into her office. When he arrived, she gestured to the chair across from her desk. 6 months, she said without preamble. "It's been 6 months since that night I showed up at your door." Ethan nodded. "Best firing I ever received," she smiled. "You've exceeded every expectation, Ethan. Your European analysis became the framework for our entire expansion strategy. Your work on the Silverman recovery saved that relationship and improved our contract terms. You've mentored 2 junior analysts. You've maintained perfect boundaries while producing exceptional work." She leaned forward. "The innovation director position is yours if you want it." Starting in January, his heart raced. I want it. Good. We'll make the announcement next week. It comes with a salary increase, dedicated team, and full schedule autonomy. You'll report directly to me. Your focus will be long-term strategic thinking, not crisis management. Build the kind of work-life that sustains you and serves the company. That's the job. Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. Thank you, Victoria, for everything. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. For refusing to let me destroy myself. For giving me my life back. You did the hard work, Ethan. I just removed the obstacles. She stood, extending her hand. Welcome to the leadership team. You've earned this. As he shook her hand, Ethan thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, exhausted, desperate, barely surviving. And he thought about the man he was becoming. Present, purposeful, capable of both grief and joy. The transformation hadn't been easy or linear. There had been setbacks, moments of doubt, days when old patterns tried to reassert themselves. But he'd kept choosing differently. Kept choosing presence over pressure. Kept choosing to live instead of just survive. And somehow, impossibly, it had led here, to a career that fit his life instead of consuming it, to a relationship with his daughter built on attention instead of distraction, to a future that held possibility instead of just obligation. He left Victoria's office and immediately called Lily's school. This is Ethan Brooks, Lily's father. I'd like to have lunch with her today if that's allowed. Of course, Mr. Brooks, we love when parents join for lunch. We'll let her know you're coming. He stopped at Lily's favorite sandwich shop, bought her favorite order, and showed up at the school cafeteria at noon. Her face when she saw him, pure, uncomplicated joy, was worth everything. Worth every hard conversation with Victoria. Worth every therapy session. Worth every moment of choosing differently. Daddy, you're here. I'm here, baby. I brought sandwiches. Want to eat together? They sat at the kid-sized table, eating lunch, surrounded by second graders, and Lily chatted about her day with the enthusiasm of someone who knew her father was actually listening. Other parents watched them with knowing smiles, recognizing the precious ordinariness of the moment. This, Ethan thought, this is what I was working for all along. I just forgot to actually live it. After lunch, Ethan returned to the office with a lightness in his chest that felt almost unfamiliar. He was drafting the transition plan for his new role when his desk phone rang. The receptionist's voice came through crisp and professional. Mr. Brooks, there's a gentleman here to see Miss Hale, but she's in meetings all afternoon. He says it's urgent and personal. He's asking if anyone on the leadership team can meet with him. Your name came up. Ethan frowned. Did he say what it's about? He says he's her brother. The surprise was immediate. In 6 years, Victoria had never mentioned family, never referenced siblings or parents or anyone beyond the late husband she'd mentioned once. Ethan glanced at his calendar, saw nothing critical, and made a decision. Sent him up to conference room B. I'll be there in 5 minutes. The man waiting in the conference room was perhaps 50. With Victoria's same sharp cheekbones and intelligent eyes, but where she radiated controlled power, he seemed diminished somehow. His suit was expensive but rumpled, his tie loosened, his hands restless on the table. Mr. Brooks, he stood, extending a hand. Daniel Hale, thank you for seeing me. I know this is irregular. Not at all. Ethan shook his hand, noting the resemblance more clearly now. Victoria's in back-to-back meetings until 6 o'clock. Is there something I can help with, or would you prefer to wait? Daniel's laugh was bitter. I'm not sure she'll want to see me at all. We haven't spoken in 3 years. He sank back into his chair, looking suddenly exhausted. I need her help. Financial trouble, bad investments, worse decisions. I'm about to lose everything and she's the only person I know with the resources to bail me out. Ethan felt immediate discomfort. This was far outside his purview. Personal territory he had no business navigating. I really think you should wait for Victoria. This isn't something I know. I just needed to talk to someone to figure out what to say. Daniel rubbed his face. She told me 3 years ago that if I didn't get my life together, she was done. No more bailouts. No more second chances. And I promised her I would. I promised and I failed. And now I'm here begging again. The raw honesty was uncomfortable. Ethan sat down across from him, uncertain, but unable to just leave. What happened? The usual story. Thought I had a sure thing. Tech startup, revolutionary product, guaranteed returns. Put everything into it. Borrowed against my house. Convince friends to invest. Daniel's voice cracked. It collapsed 2 months ago. Fraud at the executive level. We all lost everything. My wife left me last week. Took our daughter. I'm facing bankruptcy and possibly legal action from the people I brought into the investment. Ethan thought about his own desperation 6 months ago. The feeling of drowning with no lifeline visible. I'm sorry. That's devastating. Victoria warned me. She always warns me. I'm the younger brother who never learned. Who always thinks he knows better. Who resents her success while constantly needing her to save me from my own stupidity. Daniel met Ethan's eyes. She's going to say no, isn't she? I don't know. That's between you and her. Ethan hesitated, then spoke carefully. But I do know she cares about the people in her life more than she shows. She intervened in my life 6 months ago, when she had no obligation to saw I was drowning and threw me a lifeline I didn't know I needed. That sounds like Victoria. Saving people whether they ask for it or not. Daniel's tone held affection despite the bitterness. When our parents died, she was 23. I was 18. She put herself through business school while working full-time and making sure I had everything I needed for college. Paid my tuition, bought my books, made sure I ate. And how did I repay her? By dropping out junior year to chase a get-rich-quick scheme that failed spectacularly. The door opened. Victoria stood in the threshold, her expression unreadable, as she took in the scene. Daniel, Vicky, he stood slowly. I know you're busy. I know I have no right to be here. You're right. You don't. Victoria's voice was ice. I told you 3 years ago that I was done cleaning up your messes. That the next time you gambled away your stability, you'd face the consequences alone. I know. I remember. Daniel's shoulders sagged. I'm not asking you to fix this. I'm asking for advice, for help understanding my options. I've lost my wife, my home, my savings. I'm about to lose access to my daughter because I can't afford the custody lawyer. I just need guidance from someone who understands these things. Victoria looked at Ethan. Did he tell you what happened? Some of it. Did he tell you this is the 4th time that I've bailed him out of bad investments, gambling debts, and failed business ventures more times than I can count? That every time he promises to change and never does. Daniel flinched but didn't argue. Ethan felt trapped between them, witness to a family dynamic he had no context for. Victoria's anger was controlled but fierce. Years of frustration compressed into crisp sentences. I should go, Ethan said, standing. This is private. Stay. Victoria's command was gentle but firm. Your leadership now. You should understand how I handle these situations. She turned back to her brother. I will not give you money, Daniel. I will not pay your debts or save your house or fund your legal battles. Do you understand? Yes. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. But I will give you something more valuable. I will give you the same thing I gave Ethan 6 months ago. Structure, accountability, a path forward that doesn't involve self-destruction. Victoria moved into the room, her heels clicking with purpose. You'll meet with my financial advisor tomorrow. You'll create a realistic budget and debt repayment plan. You'll attend Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week. You'll get therapy and you'll report to me monthly on your progress. Daniel stared at her. Why would you do that after everything? Because you're my brother. Because I remember who took care of me after Mom and Dad died before the addiction took over. Because everyone deserves a chance to become someone better than their worst moments. Victoria's expression softened fractionally. But this is the last time, Daniel. Not the last bailout, the last chance. If you sabotage this, we're done. Truly done. No more calls. No more visits. You'll be a stranger to me. Tears streamed down Daniel's face. I won't waste it. I swear. We'll see. Victoria pulled out her phone, typed something, then looked back at him. My assistant will send you the advisor's contact information. First appointment is tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Don't be late. I won't. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you. She nodded curtly. Daniel left, closing the door quietly behind him. Victoria stood motionless for a moment, her control absolute before her shoulders dropped slightly. I'm sorry you had to witness that, she said without looking at Ethan. Don't apologize. Family is complicated. That's a generous way to describe enabling an addict for 20 years. Victoria moved to the window, staring out at the city. My therapist would say, I have boundary issues with Daniel. That I confuse love with rescue. That I keep saving him because I couldn't save David. The admission was startling. Victoria never discussed her personal life, never showed vulnerability. Ethan approached carefully, maintaining respectful distance. You're giving him tools, not just money. That's different from enabling. Is it? Or am I setting him up to fail again, so I can feel superior in my stability? Victoria's reflection in the window looked tired. I spent years in therapy learning to separate my worth from my ability to fix other people's problems. And yet here I am restructuring my brother's life the same way I restructured yours. That's not the same thing. You saw me destroying myself through grief and overwork. You intervened because I needed help I couldn't ask for. That's compassion, not control. Victoria turned to face him. And what if I'm wrong? What if my version of help is just another form of arrogance, deciding I know what people need better than they do? Ethan considered this carefully. 6 months ago, he might have resented the implication. Now, with perspective and distance, he understood the complexity. When you showed up at my door, I was angry, humiliated, terrified. I thought you were destroying my life. He met her eyes steadily. But you were right. I was drowning and calling it swimming. Sometimes people need someone who cares enough to intervene even when it's uncomfortable, even when it risks the relationship. And Daniel, am I right about him? I don't know. But I know you